All right, so if you've even glanced at crypto Twitter lately, um, things are heating up.
Yeah, it's not just the usual Bitcoin roller coaster anymore.
Definitely not. We're talking about the SEC stepping in, and not just with a slap on the wrist either. They are going after some really big names.
It does feel like almost a turning point, yeah.
Totally. Coinbase, Crypto.com, even those like legacy players like Cumberland DRW are in the hot seat.
Yeah, they're sending a message, that's for sure. The Wild West days, they're over.
So for those of us who maybe haven't been glued to every single one of these legal filings, what's the SEC's deal? What's their argument here?
Basically, they're saying a lot of these crypto firms, they're acting like unregistered securities exchanges. So instead of trading actual assets, right, they're dealing with something more like an investment contract, which falls squarely under the SEC's territory.
Which you'd think would be a good thing. Like more regulation, more investor protection. That's got to be a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But I am sensing some pushback here.
You're picking up on something, yeah. There's definitely pushback. A lot of folks, especially in the crypto world, they think the SEC is overreaching, that they're taking these old school finance rules and forcing them onto this brand new tech.
And this is where I think the whole binomial XRP thing comes in, right? Because now it's not just about exchanges flying under the radar. This gets into like the nitty-gritty of how crypto markets even work, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. The binomial case, it really highlights this debate about price discovery in crypto. Because Bitnomial, they wanted to list XRP futures contracts, and the SEC, well, they weren't having it.
Okay, so before we go full-on crypto nerd here, for
Oh,
our listeners who are maybe just dipping their toes into this world, remind us, what's a futures contract and why was this listing such a big deal?
yeah, so futures contract, it's basically just an agreement. You're agreeing to buy or sell, let's say XRP, at a certain price on a specific date in the future. It's kind of like betting on which way the price is going to go.
Okay, makes sense.
And this is common practice in like traditional markets, right? We're talking gold, oil, all that stuff.
Right, commodities.
Exactly.
So when Bitnomial wanted to offer these XRP futures, they were basically saying, we think XRP is ready for the big leagues.
Right, exactly. And that's where price discovery comes in. These derivatives markets, they're crucial for accurate price discovery because they bring in a wider range of investors and, more importantly, their opinions. This creates a more efficient, more transparent market. And who loves that? Institutional investors, the big money.
It's like Christian Carlos said on the Digital Perspectives podcast, the price of gold isn't set by some guy, at a folding table on the street corner. It's the global derivatives market that calls the shots.
That's a great analogy. Carlo makes the point that for any commodity to be taken seriously, you need mature derivatives markets. And he says crypto shouldn't be any different.
But the SEC hitting the brakes on Bitnomial's attempt to even list XRP futures throws a wrench in all of that, doesn't it?
It does, and it gets even more complicated. Bitnomial is now claiming that the SEC actually misrepresented a previous court ruling about XRP to build their case. They're saying the SEC is being, well, a little sneaky, picking and choosing info to fit their narrative.
So on the one hand, the SEC is saying, hey, we're just trying to protect investors from this volatile, maybe even risky market.
Well, on the other hand, right, you have the crypto folks saying, wait, you're killing innovation here. You're stopping the market from growing up.
And that's the heart of it, right?
Yeah.
And this whole thing just brings us back to this idea of regulation by enforcement, right?
Exactly. And it's something you hear a lot, but it's important to, really break it down. Essentially, it means instead of the SEC coming out and saying, here are the rules, follow them, they're basically making it up as they go along, using lawsuits and enforcement actions to kind of mold the industry into what they want it to be.
So instead of giving you the blueprint, they're showing up with a wrecking ball and saying, we'll know it when we see it.
Yeah, it's like trying to build a house, starting with the roof, right?
Yeah.
You end up with a pretty shaky foundation. And that's a huge point of contention here. Critics are saying this approach just creates so much uncertainty that it's stifling innovation because companies are too scared to try anything new, for fear of getting sued.
It's hard to play the game when the rules keep changing or when you don't even know what the rules are.
Exactly. And what's more, we're not just hearing this from, the crypto companies themselves. Even within the SEC, there's disagreement about how this is being handled. Remember in that podcast episode?
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Marku Yeda, his dissent was pretty powerful, calling the SEC's approach, and I'm quoting here, a disaster. He's saying it's doing more harm than good.
Which basically translates to, if you want companies to follow the rules, you got to tell them what the rules are.
Exactly. And it's this lack of clarity that has a lot of people in the crypto space worried. They're saying it's going to push innovation and, more importantly, investment offshore to countries where the rules are a little more set in stone.
It's a tough one because I get it. You need investor protection, right?
Yeah.
No one wants to see a repeat of the early days of crypto with all the scams and the pump and dumps, but
At the same time, you don't want to stifle a technology that could totally revolutionize the way we think about money. So yeah, it's a tightrope walk for sure.
and then you've got Ripple, the company behind XRP. They are not backing down. They're going toe-to-toe with the SEC.
Oh, absolutely. They're not just going to take it lying down. I mean, they filed a cross appeal, for goodness sakes. They even hired a former SEC enforcement director for their legal team, which is kind of like bringing in a former referee to coach your team.
It shows how high the stakes are here. They're not just fighting for XRP. They're basically challenging the entire way the SEC is approaching crypto regulation.
Right, and their argument seems to be that the SEC isn't fighting fair, that they're twisting facts and intentionally creating confusion in the market, which, whether you agree with them or not, that has huge implications.
Yeah. So it really comes down to, who are you going to believe?
Yeah.
The SEC saying, hey, we're the adults in the room, trust us. Or the crypto companies saying, no, you're stifling innovation and you're actually harming the very investors you're claiming to protect.
It's a classic dilemma, right? Because on the one hand, no one wants to see a return to like the Wild West days of crypto, where scams were rampant. Investor protection is absolutely crucial, especially in a market as volatile as this.
Right. But then again, too much regulation could crush this technology before it even has a chance to flourish. So it's not just about who wins or loses in court, is it? It's much bigger than that.
Right. This is about the future of finance. Will the U.S. embrace innovation and stay ahead of the curve, or will it watch from the sidelines as other countries figure this whole thing out and reap the benefits? It's a big question, a billion-dollar question, you could say. And like you said, who are you going to believe?
And that's what I think is so interesting about this whole deep dive, right?
Right.
It's not just about summarizing a few news articles or, regurgitating what everyone else is saying. It's about understanding the nuances, the arguments from all sides. And then you, the listener, you get to decide what you believe, where you stand.
Exactly. And that's what's so important in this space, especially now with so much information and misinformation flying around, you have to be able to filter the noise. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, give you the tools to make up your own mind.
And speaking of filtering the noise, I thought that was a really interesting point they made on digital perspectives about tuning out the doomsayers. They were saying, remember all those folks who said, XRP is dead, it's over? Well, they're still around, but Ripple, they're stronger than ever. So, who are you going to listen to, right?
It's such a good question because it gets at something really important in the crypto world, maybe in life in general, but figuring out who to trust, whose opinions actually matter in the long run, that's tricky.
Especially when you've got these huge regulatory moves happening. It's easy to get caught up in the hype or the fear or just the feeling that you're missing out if you don't react right now.
Absolutely. And that's why taking the time to really understand the core issues like we're doing now, it's more valuable than ever. We're not just talking about one company or one coin going up or down. This is about the whole future of how this technology actually plays out.
Yeah, it's bigger than just should I buy the dip.
Way bigger.
So, okay, for our listener who's been with us this whole time, they've got this crash course now in the SEC, price discovery, this whole crypto showdown. What's the one thing they should take away from all of this? How do they make sense of this crazy world?
I think, honestly, the most important thing is to stay curious, stay informed, and just remember, we're still so early in this. We're seeing a whole new financial system being built in real time, and that's going to get messy sometimes.
It's remember those early Bitcoin folks who threw out hard drives with thousands of coins on them?
Oh, man.
Imagine if this really does go mainstream, the stories we're going to tell, it's wild.
I know, right? But the point is, every lawsuit, every new regulation, it's all shaping how we think about money, about value. It's exciting.
So it's less about picking a side in this whole fight and more about understanding what the sides even are, what happens if they win or lose, and then deciding for yourself how much risk you're down for.
100%. Because if there's one thing that's certain, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Will the U.S. be a leader in the space, or will we watch from the sidelines? The decisions being made right now, they're going to determine that.
Wow. Okay, so the deep dive might be over, but the conversation is definitely not ending here. Keep asking those tough questions,
Yeah.
keep learning, and for goodness sake, keep watching this space because things are moving fast. Until next time, happy diving, everybody.